that assistance and I put it to some arbitrary face that I don't know, and we call it government. Now my assistance is a little different, Michael. When my leg gets better, okay, when my neighbor was knocking on my door and saying, here's the food for your family for today, I had to look him in the eye, and I was grateful for it. And you know what? I'd have shame accepting his food and being healthy and ready to work. But you know what? That's gone today. When we look at this faceless government that gives us everything, we lose our shame. And there it goes back to your first question about why do we have more people in jail?
Yeah.
Right? Because more people become corrupt. Because the faces are so distant, so far away, that we believe that there's an entitlement that's due us. We're not due anything. And the further you put that away from the individual, I think the smaller the bonds between community come. And there goes your ethics. There goes your moral sentiments. Adam Smith's world was much smaller. Ours is much bigger. And it's global now. We need to empower individuals, believe it or not, to succeed or fail. And when they fail, there'll be people to pick them up that's close to them. It won't be some government.
But those people who are the adherents of the gospel that you've just articulated were the first people standing in line in December for TARP money.
Michael, I respect your opinion, okay? But again, I will say that here's a good rule. The people who are so wildly successful, okay, who make so much money, if you look really closely, and I have, there's always something that makes them monopolistic in one shape or fashion. And what do I mean by monopolistic? Okay, you know a lot about Major League Baseball. I know you've written a few books or something, or a book or two, right, on Major League. Is Major League Baseball a monopoly?
Sure.
It is, okay?
It's a sanctioned monopoly by the government.
That's right. It's actually sanctioned to be a monopoly. So it exists in our culture as a monopoly. Now, look at the payrolls of people who play Major League Baseball. Now, A-Rod, right? New York City, the Yankees, right? You look at A-Rod and you go, hey, why does he make that much money? Because he's part of a monopoly, all right? Well, that's an easy one, right? Because you already know it's a sanctioned monopoly and it exists, right? But take a look to Wall Street. Take a look and say, can I tomorrow be traded on the stock exchange? I can, all right? And we have regulated markets. Who regulates them? Government, all right? Government creates a monopoly for them to play inside those parameters, and it's very difficult to play outside of them. So what happens over time, and of course people on Wall Street, people in high finance are going to work hand in hand often with government. And now we've blurred the line so much with the Bush and Obama administrations that there is no line between government and private industry any longer.
Can a company be too big to fail?
A company...
That is, should the government bail out companies that have really screwed up? Because they're so big,
I think
to let them go under would be detrimental to the economy as a whole.
I think companies will not get so big unless they gain monopolistic control of their markets, or attempt to. And that's okay. That's what they should strive to do. When a company gets, say, too big, we forget about the motto or the paradigm that success breeds competition. What happens is, if a business model gets so successful, people will imitate that. But what happens in the real world is that when a company becomes very successful, they look to get stuff that's exclusive to them. Now, like think about it as a patent, for instance. A patent is a monopoly. Okay? So I strive to get something that someone else can't get. And when I do it through government, you see, I have government being my protector. So when we say success breeds competition, well, it should, unless we have barriers to entry. And if we have barriers to enter that, to keep competitors away, we'll grow enormous.
Are you opposed to patents and copyrights?
I actually own a patent, so I know very well, and I've studied it. And again, intellectual property, and I might add, in this global world, that if you don't have an international patent, then it's pretty much you don't have a patent.
Right.
But I am for intellectual property, copyrights, but I see what they do. They are absolutely monopolistic, and that's by their
If
definition.
I'm working on a book 10 years, and I get a copyright, I just got one for something, don't I have a right to protect my 10 years effort?
Michael, I'm in the same boat, right? I'm in the same boat.
They're my ideas. I work them out.
Yeah, that's interesting. You've taken time and toil to get things done, and
Just read a book where a guy
yeah.
pulled out the entire theoretical chapter of my history of the presidency, and all of a sudden, it's in the middle of his book.
Yeah.
And he cites me in the footnote.
Interesting. Well, I've seen my columns on blogs. Think about that. I mean, I wrote columns, and they wind up all over the internet on blogs. No one's ever told me, can I copy this and write it? So when you think about it, and I'm a firm believer that you can copyright an idea. That's why, Michael, I have a living. I make a living doing something. And what I write, I contribute basically knowing that I'm never going to get...
So you don't support copyrights then?
I do, but I know I would never copy someone else's thoughts or ideas.
No, but I mean your own. Do you want to protect your own thoughts from other people using them?
You know what? I'd rather... here's what I'd like to say on that, okay? I'd rather someone attribute me to... if they're going to have attribution, that's okay.
And a patent. Let's say you're the guy that developed Lipitor.
And spent all those years.
All those years, all that money to promote Lipitor. Would you not want 10 years of free
You know what
use
this
of
goes back to, all right? This goes back to what we call property rights. And what is property? And intellectual property a few centuries ago was thought to become an idea. And the government said, look, for us to have innovation, we need to protect those people who come up with ideas. So I understand where they are. Perhaps they should be shorter. I don't know.
Good. Now, one of the areas that you've been involved in your distinguished career has been the question of homeland security. You've done a lot of building security, but you've also been involved in the great issues of homeland security, which have been so important since the 9/11 attacks on us. Are we safer now this year than we were when George Bush was in office?
Michael, it's hard to say. Of course, there's so much information that I don't have access to. I do know that the terrorists know what we know. Okay, so any kind of technology that we have, they have. They have the access to the internet. They have a vast amount of communications. They have those things that could pose threats in many venues. And my thoughts are, of course, we look at airlines and how we bolster the fort, but when you think about this is guerrilla warfare. And Mao wrote a book on guerrilla warfare, as you well know. Right. And in that, they said we work in small cells, right? And the cell thing comes up, but they were platoons. We take away the Crown's arsenals. We attack their arsenals because they can't be connected. They could never beat a larger standing army with the standing army because they didn't have it. So that's what is guerrilla warfare. Will mean they strike at our weakest points. And right now we're putting a lot of money into airlines. Local Law 26 in New York City came about after the trade centers fell. And it said that basically Class B buildings in New York City had to be protected from what we refer to as CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosions. In Class B buildings, because 2 Class B buildings fell. Actually 3. And so what you have there is what? We respond to say, okay, let's protect Class B buildings. How about the movie theaters? How about the theater houses? How about the Grand Central Station? All the other types of buildings. You see, when we protect the areas they know what areas we protect. And if they're true to form,